I was with Francis Ngannou over the weekend. What does that mean? Well, I didn't speak to him, but I was in the same vicinity as him in Saudi Arabia. Francis comes in, and I mean, these people come to their feet. He walks through. Francis is such a presence. Everything's going great. I haven't seen Francis in interviews. I haven't seen footage of Francis posted on social media, things like this, interviews posted on social media, training sessions that are stateside, meaning they're at a gym in America. And I thought Francis did his training at Extreme Couture in Las Vegas. Well, perfect scenario. When I was in Saudi Arabia working, my broadcast partner is Randy Couture, who owns Extreme Couture Gym. So I say to Randy, is Francis's home still Extreme Couture? And Randy said, yes, it is. Randy shared with me, though, that Francis is doing this training camp, hands only, right? Just boxing. He's doing this specific training camp in Saudi Arabia. Now, I thought that was interesting. Apparently, and if you guys know this story, I apologize. I live in this space. It hadn't been told to me, right? But I have a feeling that it's a well-known story, and so maybe you guys do know it. But Mike Tyson opened his own gym in Saudi Arabia. And he didn't just loan his name to a gym that opened in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, Mike spends a lot of time at this gym, and he's training guys, and the sport of boxing is really like becoming a thing in Saudi Arabia. At any rate, Francis is there twice a day, every day. This is where he's doing his camp. Brought Dewey Cooper over, for example. They've already been there for a month. This fight is still, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's still a month or so away. Eric Nicksink will be coming in, overseeing. Nicksink would be the head coach who oversees everything. And Francis just boots on the ground. The reason I bring that to you guys is because that speaks to a deeper dedication. That is the one and only reason that I took time out of my day to tell you guys that Francis is training in Saudi Arabia at a gym opened up by Mike Tyson. Generally, those are all the pieces that you would need for a headline to put in a press release, put in a banner behind you, move on with your life. It's not the case. Francis is there. He's getting what's called acclimated. Just not an advantage that he had when he took on Tyson Fury. There was a bit of an acclimation period that Francis went through. That's not the same thing. Acclimation camp, that's not the same thing as becoming fully immersed and therefore acclimated. Francis is planning to win this fight. And I know for some of you, you just laugh. Of course he's planning to win the fight. That's because you don't understand. It's not like that. It's only presented to you like that. Two boxers going into the ring. They both know who's going to win. Two boxers signing a contract, two boxers showing up at weigh-ins, two boxers showing up to a press conference. They both know who's going to win. It's the same with MMA guys. They both know who's going to win. Now, it's not spot on. That's a broad stroke, but it is well over 95% and much closer to 98% accuracy. They both know who's going to win. And the rest of it, you try to align the universe. You try to put yourself in a position so you can follow the golden rule, which is to protect yourself at all times. The number one fear that a combat athlete has is not losing. His biggest fear is exhaustion. Combat athlete's biggest fear will be that at some point in the evening, he will get so fatigued that he can no longer defend himself. It's a very interesting concept when you start to see the sincerity that Francis Ngannou is willing to put in this. When you look at how perfect it appeared, Francis versus Fury was for Francis. That looked like a night. That's what dreams are made of. Everything came together. It looked to be perfect. But it wasn't. Something was off. Something didn't feel right. As good as the performance was, Francis feels he could perform better. And that's why he's making these changes, see? If he truly thought it was perfect, if it was everything that you and I saw, and Francis should have been awarded, and Francis should have been the champion of the world, and they should have put the belt around him. That's outcome. That's what we, the public, speak about. That's what DraftKings has to know. What was the outcome and how did it come? But the greats will focus on performance, not outcome. And something within the performance of Francis versus Fury, as much as we'd like to celebrate it, Francis feels wasn't right. Wasn't done. Wasn't a final product. It wasn't perfect. And I find that interesting. I personally find that interesting. I thought that Francis overperformed. I didn't think Francis belonged in there with him. I was certain Francis couldn't beat him. And I was very confident if Fury went out and competed that it would be over inside of 3 rounds. The odds makers, by the way, fully agreed with me. But it wasn't a lucky punch. It wasn't, apparently. Apparently, there's a way to perform even better. Francis believes he has identified what that is. He is packed up. He has moved from his family. He has moved to this gym in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and he has buckled down fully on Anthony Joshua. For me, that's very interesting. I've seen fighters appear to be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I had a teammate named Devin Cole. It's one of the hardest fights that Daniel Cormier ever had, and you can ask Daniel Cormier. And Devin Cole had a job at a tire shop. He'd be stacking tires, and during his lunch break, he would go to a school. It was like a middle school right across the street, and he'd run the track 3 times. But he truly believed, Devin did, in the sacrifice. He truly believed in his condition. He truly believed that he was going to be able to take Daniel Cormier to a place that Daniel had never been. And if you ask Daniel to this day what was one of his hardest and most competitive fights where he had to dig the deepest to come back and win, he'll tell you it was against Devin Cole. And if I tell you that Devin Cole went and ran 3 laps on his lunch break, you would assume that I was joking, but I'm not. Right? Like there's just these different guys. They beat to a different drum, and you never fully know what gets them going. And one thing that we see all the time in boxing and in MMA is a guy goes out and he has a good performance. And some vulture comes in and takes him and says, you would have won if. I came from one of the most quintessential and well-known gyms ever. Team Quest, I'm very proud of it. But my pride is almost internal. My teammates don't feel the same way, and the public doesn't see us that same way. I apparently was alone in thinking that we were an actual team. But I will tell you, nothing tore my Team Quest apart. Nothing tore Team Quest apart like the Ultimate Fighter. To this day, we had more opportunity than anyone else through that program. I coached it twice, for goodness sakes. The first coach ever of it was Randy Couture, who owned Team Quest, ever. And we had more connections and more opportunities. And you know what? I've only had one teammate. To this day, I have one teammate that's gone through that process and still is my teammate. And even he left the team for 6 years. We had a 100% breakup rate. You were part of Team Quest and you went and did the Ultimate Fighter. Somebody would leech onto you that you would listen to, and you would no longer be a Team Quest fighter. I'm only sharing that for you because it's a real thing, and I see it and I go through it. And I didn't see Francis go through it. And while he might be at a different gym, he brought his coach with him. And while the coach and Francis might be at a different gym, the head coach, Eric Nixick, still with them, still overseeing the whole thing. I'm only here to tell you one thing. Francis and go, you want to snicker at this? Go ahead. You want to laugh at it? Go ahead. You like it and you say, I told you so? Might be. But I will tell you, for sure, Francis Ngannou is planning to beat Anthony Joshua.